Hi there, students. I'm XS. That's little x, little s, which stands for extra sweet, because that's what I am. I'm a Puppy-sensei, and I make Japanese content to help you level up your abilities. Today, we're doing something just a little different. In honor of Pride Month, I'm going to do a bit of a review lesson where we'll be discussing the colors in Japanese. That's going to feel like a very elementary lesson for a lot of you compared to where we have traveled so far, but as I'm fond of saying, review is important. Fukushu wa taisetsu desu ne. But just as important as review is the concept of pride. I am not someone who does enough to build up my own sense of self-worth, but this is 1 month when at least I feel like I have the support enough of those around me that I can feel a little bit proud of myself. That's why Pride Month is so important. We have a lot of shame and a lot of stigma, and this is at least one time when we are told we're good enough and it's okay. It's okay that we are who we are. Stand up, girl, and let yourself shine. That's what I'm trying to tell myself. Anyway, for today's lesson, we won't be doing a really deep dive into a single grammar point the way I normally do on Wednesdays. Instead, well, we're gonna do something a little bit queer. This is the pride flag. The pride flag is often used as a representative for all queer identities. Gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans, ace, all the rest of them. Actually, though, if we're going to talk about the pride flag, we really should honestly start with the OG. This original pride flag was created by Gilbert Baker and first debuted at the San Francisco Gay Freedom Parade on June 25th, 1978. It was designed at the request of Harvey Milk, the first openly gay elected official in California's history. I want you to really take a moment to think about this. Really let this sink in, please. Just for a moment. Really think about it. This flag, this first pride flag was invented almost 50 years ago. Almost 50 years we have had this pride flag. Almost 50 years we have been celebrating pride together. And in spite of 50 years of gay pride, we still have, well, this crap. It's mind-boggling to me, not only that we have managed to not eradicate hateful and homophobic ideologies in favor of progressive and futuristic love. Oh no, far from it. No, hateful and homophobic rhetoric is in vogue. And that is abhorrent to me. It's honestly one of the most monstrous things that I can possibly think about. And it scares me to death. But for today, what we're going to do is we're going to learn the colors used in this flag in Japanese. Yeah? And I think that should be fun. So let's start at the top. So the first color that we see here is pinku. Pink. Notice that it's written in katakana because the word pinku comes from English. And words that are not native to Japanese are really frequently written in katakana. So katakana is a writing system that takes words from other languages that have been incorporated into the Japanese lexicon, that have become Japanese words, and they're written in katakana to mark them as non-Japanese words, as not coming from Japanese, as gaijin no kotoba desu ne. So words that are coming from outside or from foreigners, from foreign concepts, right? And so pinku is one of these words that came to Japan and started being written in katakana, pinku. All right? Now, I have spoken about this before, but Japanese has sort of 3 classes of adjectives. We're going to talk about this very briefly today. So the classes of adjectives in Japanese are e adjectives, na adjectives, and what are so-called no adjectives. We'll talk more about that later. E adjectives are recognizable because they end in an E sound. They will, in almost all cases, start with some segment that's written in kanji, followed by some segment which is written in hiragana, which will likely end in the E sound, the E hiragana. Ne? For example, let's look at this one. So this is subarashi. Subarashi is a word that means something like excellent or wonderful or fabulous. But do you see how it starts with those 2 kanji sitting there? And then it seems to kind of trail off into hiragana toward the end. Why is that? Well, it's because E adjectives can conjugate. So adjectives can conjugate in Japanese, right? In English, it's mostly verbs that conjugate, but in Japanese, adjectives conjugate. And things that conjugate in Japanese really need to be written in hiragana. Kanji effectively cannot conjugate for grammar. Kanji come from Chinese Han characters, and Chinese lacks a robust conjugation system that is like one that we find in Japanese. So when kanji were imported to Japan as a writing system, the writing system had to adjust to compensate, right? Kanji don't change, but the Japanese language is full of change all the time. There's lots of conjugation, there's lots of inflection, right? And so this need to be able to conjugate, therefore, over time, et voilà, the E adjective. It's an adjective that uses kanji to derive its meaning, but then uses hiragana to factor for conjugation. Also, yes, that's right. Japanese adjectives do conjugate, like I said, meaning that a Japanese adjective can be put into the past tense. We don't do this in English, but in Japanese, you could have something like subarashikatta. Subarashikatta. That's in the past tense. It was fabulous. Past tense for fabulous, right? Okay, so Japanese adjectives conjugate for a variety of reasons. Tense, negativity, conjecture, usually not respect or humility though. Even though Japanese verbs can be conjugated as either polite or as impolite, most adjectives don't have a basic conjugation for register in this way. Okay, so technically it's true that you could add des to make an adjective become polite, but in my mind, I don't really treat that as a conjugation so much as it is just adding des. Anyway, you get the point. Moving on, we next have na adjectives. Na adjectives are sometimes called noun-like adjectives because they don't exactly conjugate per se. Instead, they take the modifier na in the case that they themselves are being used to modify a noun. But when they're used post-nominally after a noun, then really these adjectives actually just behave just like nouns. So basically, let's look at this example. Hanayaka na hata. Hanayaka na hata. Ne? A colorful flag. Hanayaka na hata. Okay? So hata there at the end is the word for a flag. And hanayaka is the adjective meaning colorful. Remember, in this case, the adjective hanayaka is modifying the noun hata, which basically forms a new, bigger noun unit, colorful flag. So basically, the creation of the new unit, hanayaka na hata, makes a new noun that you could then push into any place in a sentence where you feel like you would need a noun. However, in that second sentence, right, the second sentence is hata wa hanayaka desu. That's a full sentence. Hata wa hanayaka desu. Right? In that case, hanayaka does not need the na part because it's effectively acting as a noun. So basically, that's how the na adjectives work. They don't really conjugate, not really, and that's because they act as nouns in most cases. However, as I said, there is sort of a third class of adjective, which is the no adjective. These aren't actually adjectives at all. They aren't. They are nouns. They're just nouns. And when we use them just like nouns wherever it is that they go in a sentence. If we use them after a noun, they act as a noun, just like na adjectives. If we use them before a noun, then we're going to connect that no adjective with the base noun using the particle no, which kind of means something like of, right, or belonging to. The color pinku is a no adjective. It is a noun. It is a noun. That's all there is to it. It's a noun, but it can act as an adjective going before another noun in this way. Pinku no imi wa nan desu ka? Pinku no imi wa nan desu ka? What is the meaning of the color pink? Great question. I'm glad you asked. So back to the OG pride flag. You might not know it, but each of the colors in the original pride flag had a meaning. And pink stands for sekusu, sex. Quiet! There's no sex in this dojo! Anyway, yeah, the word for sex in Japanese is sekusu. Sekusu, ne? Aha! I hear you. You're wondering why on earth the word for sex would be written in katakana and not kanji. If katakana is used for words that are imported from other languages, does that mean that the concept of having sex was imported from a different country? Don't be silly. There are native words for sex in Japanese, but they can sound a little bit vulgar, and lately I really feel like I hear sekusu more often than not. Aka is the word for red in Japanese. It's an E adjective, so when it's been used as an adjective, it'll be akai, right? With an E sound at the end. Akai. Aka is literally just the name of the color red. So as a noun, it's aka. As an adjective, it's akai. In the pride flag, the color red stands for life. There are a couple different ways that we can talk about life, being alive, or living in Japanese. But today we're going to learn the word seimei. Seimei. It means life. It implies not only life itself, something like your life force, your living being, but it can also imply things like your livelihood or your career. Listen, that should not shock you. The idea that your life itself is kind of like tied into your job? Yeah. Very, very, very Japanese ideology, unfortunately. But yes, seimei means life. That's one of the ways that we can talk about life in Japanese. There are some other words that will also mean life, but today we learn seimei for the red part of the pride flag. The next part of the pride flag is oranji. 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 One of my favorite bands is kind of like a Japanese R&B band called Oranji Ranji. I don't know if they're still doing stuff. I should check on that. Anyway, oranji is another no adjective. It can also refer to the fruit, specifically the much larger oranges that we grow like here rather than the smaller, sweeter Japanese oranges called mikan, right? But oranji is another no adjective. Oranji itself is really just a noun, and as we see, it's also written in katakana, right? And the color orange in the pride flag stands for healing. Healing. The word I'm going to teach you today for healing is chiyu. I actually chose to teach you chiyu today, as this specific word for healing, right, is the word that we would use for the cure spell in something like a Final Fantasy or a similar RPG game. See? Learning about gay stuff can relate to video games too. So chiyu, right? That's what we see here. Chiyu is a noun, right? It's not an adjective, but we knew that already because it's not a color. The colors can be adjectives. Chiyu is a noun. Okay? All right. Speaking of colors, the next color is yellow. Yellow. Ki-iro. Ki-iro. Okay? Make sure that you're getting both of those E sounds. The E from ki and the E from iro. Ne? So it shouldn't be kiro, because that's a kilogram. It should be kiro. Ne? Kiro. Ki-iro. Okay? Just try to put a pause in between whenever you have these two sounds that are the exact same sound. Just put the tiniest little bit of a pause, just so that you make sure that you're understood. Because you don't want to say something is yellow, but actually you describe it as a kilogram. That you want to make sure that it's kiro, ne, kiro. All right. Ki-iro is a somewhat unique color in the Japanese language. It's an E adjective, but it's the one primary color that is usually written yellow color. The ki part here means yellow, and the iro part means color, right? So actually the word for yellow in Japanese really means yellow in color. Ki-iro. Also, yes, that means that when you use ki-iro as an adjective, it's going to be pronounced ki-iroi. Ne? Ki-iroi. So that's the E adjective at the end, the E sound that will allow that to be placed before something as a descriptor. Can you guess what the yellow in the pride flag stands for? Maybe you can't. I thought it was obvious, but okay, I'll just tell you. It's the sun. Taiyo. Taiyo. The sun. The bright, brilliant, happy sun. The wonderful summer sun. The wonderfully bright, yellow, hot, sunburny, beachy sun. I mean, yeah, me personally, I kind of prefer the coolness of a moonlit night over like an oppressively hot, sunlit day. But hey, there's absolutely something beautiful about like a warm, sunny day. Sure, I know a lot of people who like that kind of thing. I'll stay inside. Also, I sort of have to laugh because technically the kanji for taiyo, the sun, it means plump sunshine. It means plump with sunshine. I guess the sun ate too many sun rays or something like that. And then we have green. Green in Japanese is midori. Midori. Ne, midori. Midori is the word for green in Japanese, but technically midori means a dark green color. Kind of like a hunter green color, right? So definitely not a light green. We'll talk about that later. But midori, it's a dark green. Midoriya, literally a field of green. He wears a dark green outfit, doesn't he? Coincidence? Or... well, okay, no, it's not a coincidence. Midoriya wears midori. It's a dark green color. Ne? Green, on the pride flag, stands for nature. And nature in Japanese is shizen. Shizen is one of my favorite things. I love nature. I love the natural world. I love hiking. I love being out in the outdoors. I have hiked around Japan and China and Canada as well, actually, a lot, a whole lot. I have done a lot of hiking, and unfortunately I can't hike as much as I used to because of my leg, but I still really love shizen. I love trees, and I love forest paths, and I love the water, and I love being near rivers, and I love animals. I love every animal except mukade, and I don't like them at all, but I love nature. Anyway, shizen is a word that really implies the idea also of something like naturally, something that happens on its own without the need for human intervention. Nature, natural, and that's also what gayness is. Perfectly natural. Perfectly natural. It's perfectly natural, and you are perfect exactly the way you are. And don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise. There's nothing unnatural about being queer, or being trans, or being gay at all. Really. It's natural. And I support you, wherever you are. Moving on. I decided to teach you this next color as Mizuiro. Mizuiro. Mizuiro, okay? Mizuiro. That's that same iro from Ki-iro, remember? Okay, and that part means color. Technically, I think the color on the pride flag is really supposed to be turquoise, but I think Mizuiro is a much more common color that you're much more likely to use in Japanese conversation. Mizuiro literally translates to the color of water. It's a very light blue color. Mizuiro. It's the color of like still, calm, beautiful water, or also kind of sometimes the sky. Yeah. Okay, and this light blue color, this Mizuiro, in the pride flag, it stands for art and magic. It stands for both of those things. Art and magic. Art and magic. And so I'm teaching you both of these words in Japanese. Art in Japanese is geijutsu. Geijutsu. Ne? Geijutsu means art. It's literally the craft of art, so that jutsu part is actually the same thing from like ninjutsu. Ninjutsu is the art of being a ninja. Ne? And so geijutsu is the art of, well, it's the practice of art. It's the technique of art. I didn't explain that very well, but it's perfectly fine. It's all right. We're just going to power through it. Geijutsu is art. Okay? Actually, the gay in geijutsu, it's not gay like queer. It's not gay, but it is the same gay from geisha. So if you've ever wondered what geisha really means, geisha really just translates to an artist. So the sha part in a geisha is kind of just like a person, and the gay part means art. So a geisha is an artist. It's a person who does art. And that makes sense because historically, geisha were entertainers who would perform art and other things for their clients. We won't get into the rest of it, and it's a complicated history. Also, please, 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 do not go to the Gion district in Kyoto and take pictures of the geisha and the maiko. Don't do that. They're people who are going about their lives. Don't hound them with weird picture practices. Anyway, enough about geisha. The to between geijutsu and maho here means and. This is a Japanese word for and that can connect two nouns. It has to go between two nouns, and so that to in geijutsu to maho means and if you're connecting two nouns. Okay. The maho part in Japanese, maho means magic. Like a maho shoujo, a magical girl. So magic, like I don't know, wizards have magic. Maho. Anyway, blue in Japanese is ao. Ao. This is an adjective. It's an e adjective, and when it's an adjective, it is aoi. Ne? So ao on its own is blue. It's a noun. It's the color blue, just by itself. Noun, blue. As an adjective, it's aoi, describing something as blue. Aoi. I love teaching new students the word aoi because it's basically one word with only 3 vowel sounds and no consonants. Aoi. I also like it because it sounds like owie, and that's something that I know a lot about because I run into a lot of doors a lot of the time because I'm very clumsy. I'm the clumsiest dog. Anyway, I've talked about this elsewhere too, but the word aoi actually implies a color that is far closer to blue-green than what we ordinarily think of as blue. And that means that the green color in a stoplight would actually be aoi, blue, from the perspective of the Japanese language, right? The Japanese language just makes that cutoff a little bit more differently than we do. So aoi, we translate it as blue, but it's actually closer to blue-green, right? And it kind of scopes over the sort of area between dark green and dark blue. That whole area is aoi. So when you look at a stoplight, you can think, aka, hiiro, aoi. In Japanese, it's red, yellow, blue. I know that sounds weird, but it's true. It's true. In the pride flag, blue stands for serenity or peacefulness. In Japanese, this idea of serenity is heisei. Heisei desu ne. Heisei is also the name of a period in Japanese history, right? It's a name of a reign, and all imperial reigns in Japanese will get a name that kind of like implies some positive quality, right? And so Heisei was the name of a Japanese reign, but it is a different Heisei from this Heisei. It uses a different sei kanji, basically. So this Heisei is different, uses different kanji. Anyway, the hei here means levelness, like flatness. Anyway, I really like the idea that blue means serenity in the pride flag. Blue is my very, very, very favorite color in the whole world, and serenity is also something that's very, very important to me. That probably shouldn't surprise you, right? I'm sure that I seem like a very, very, very calm, peaceful puppy in most cases. Don't I? Don't I? Lastly, we have murasaki. Murasaki. It's another no adjective. So murasaki is a no adjective. Technically, it's just a noun. Murasaki. It means purple. Purple is another one of my favorite colors, and yeah, like I said, it's technically just a base noun. So when you describe something as murasaki, you would say murasaki no yasai, a purple vegetable. Murasaki no yasai wa nasu. It's a eggplant. So eggplant is a purple vegetable. Sometimes, I think you can have not purple eggplant. Maybe. Anyway, the purple in the pride flag stands for spirit. Seishin. Seishin. So we're seeing that here. Seishin. This is actually a great place for us to end our conversation of this flag, because I really feel like the idea of spirit being something that's captured in the ideals of the pride flag actually really, really, really speaks to me in a really important way. The shin that we see in seishin, right? That's the second kanji in this kanji compound, is the same shin from Shinto, the religion, Shinto. And that same shin can also be read kami, which is God or gods. And Shinto is a religion that teaches us that there are spirits and gods in all things. There are spirits in the slightest element of nature, the tiniest rock or leaf. And also there are spirits in the greatest mountain. And likewise, pride is everywhere. It's our responsibility to reflect the love of who we are, to be ourselves unapologetically, especially right now, especially during Pride Month. We have to. It's never been more important than it is right now in this moment, because there's so much hateful ideology going around, and we have to stand against that. And the only way to stand against that is to stand tall, keep our heads held high, and be proud of ourselves. And I am proud of you. And I'm proud of me too, but mostly I'm proud of you. I know this wasn't a very traditional grammar drop video, but honestly, I really enjoyed this one. It's a bit elementary, maybe, but it's also not going to hurt any of us to go back to the basics when we're celebrating Pride Month. Remember, I love you lots and lots. I'm proud of you, and today you get a gold star for all your hard work. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Mata ne!